The fall is shaping up to be one of the biggest seasons of games in a long time, and in this video, we'll be taking a look at the top 10 upcoming PlayStation 4 games of the fall. This list will include both multi-platform titles as well as exclusives, so with that being said, let's get right into this. Number 10, Rise of the Tomb Raider. A lot of people may have forgotten about this. The once Xbox One exclusive will finally be coming to PlayStation 4. Rise of the Tomb Raider was one of the best games in all of 2015. It was a giant step forward over the last Tomb Raider game from visuals, world design, storytelling, characters. It was just great. At this point, many of you might not care about playing what is a one-year-old game, but I highly recommend checking out Rise of the Tomb Raider. It'll be well worth your time and money. We still don't have an exact release date for Rise of the Tomb Raider, but it is scheduled for Q4 this year. Number 9, South Park: The Fractured But Whole. South Park: The Stick of Truth was one of the surprisingly great games of last generation. Few people were expecting an RPG in the South Park universe to work, but it was a fantastic game. If you were a South Park fan, it was a love letter to you, and even if you weren't a fan of the TV series, the crude humor, great art, and solid mechanics made it a very competent game in its own right. Now we have the sequel, South Park: The Fractured But Whole, where you will once again play as the new kid joining the children of South Park as they act as superheroes. Expect another hilarious RPG out of this. South Park: The Fractured But Whole releases on December 6th. Number 8, Watch Dogs 2. Watch Dogs was one of the most successful new IPs of this generation. It did phenomenally from a commercial standpoint, but the game itself was far from perfect. It was a no-brainer that we would eventually be seeing a sequel, and that will be coming this fall. Watch Dogs 2 is set in San Francisco. You play as Marcus Holloway, who was framed for a crime he did not commit by CTOS 2.0. Now he is working with DedSec to bring CTOS down. The world of Watch Dogs 2 will be broken up into 6 different areas, each of them being different aesthetically and characteristically. The game will also be introducing co-op multiplayer where you can meet with random players and go on missions together. Hopefully Watch Dogs 2 can make the right improvements over its predecessor and releases on November 15th. Number 7, Dishonored 2. Gamers have been clamoring for a sequel to Arcane Studios' Dishonored for a while now, and this fall it'll happen. Dishonored 2 is set 15 years after the first game and will feature 2 playable characters: a grown-up Emily Caldwin who was usurped from her throne, or you can play as Corvo Attano, who was the protagonist in the first game. Dishonored 2 will follow the general style and premise of the first game, but refinements have been made. The upgrade system has been changed to a skill tree, allowing for more possible upgrades, and Dishonored 2 is also expected to be much more difficult than its predecessor. It releases on November 11th. Number 6, Titanfall 2. Like Watch Dogs 2, another follow-up from a hugely successful new IP is Titanfall 2, and this time around it'll be on PlayStation 4 as well. The first game had its issues, mainly on the content front. There wasn't a traditional single-player campaign, and the overall experience didn't keep most engaged outside of the first few weeks. It seems as though Respawn took the criticism to heart, as Titanfall 2 will feature a fully-fledged single-player campaign which will explore the relationship between Pilot and their Titan. The multiplayer also seems to be getting a jolt with several new Titans, weapons, maps, etc. Titanfall 2 will be released on October 28th. Number 5, Gran Turismo Sport. Gran Turismo is back now for the first time on the PlayStation 4 and possibly more interesting on PlayStation VR. Now for those of you that have no desire to pick up PSVR, don't fret because GT Sport will be fully playable using a regular setup. The game will be comprised of 3 game modes: the campaign, sports mode, and the arcade mode. A big emphasis in GT Sport is the competitive play, from online championships to live esport events held on a regular basis. For those wanting to get invested into a racing game, it looks like this will have you covered. The inclusion of VR is exciting if nothing else. It'll offer a new type of experience to Gran Turismo fans, and it's not mandatory, so we really have no reason to complain about it. Gran Turismo Sport comes to the market on November 15th. Number 4, The Last Guardian. One of the most anticipated PlayStation games for over half a decade will finally be releasing this fall. The Last Guardian was announced back in 2009, and since then it's seen a tumultuous road. At times we thought the project had been canned, but obviously that was not the case. The game is being developed by Team Ico, the guys that were responsible for 2 of the best PlayStation 2 games of all time in Ico and Shadow of the Colossus. It's impossible to know what to expect from The Last Guardian, but even if it's half as good as Team Ico's other games, it'll be quality. The Last Guardian released on October 25th. Number 3, Mafia 3. After 6 years, we are finally getting the third entry to the Mafia series. Mafia 3 is set in 1968 in a fictional recreation of New Orleans. You'll play as Lincoln Clay, an orphan who is on a quest for revenge against the Italian mob. Unlike Mafia 2, Mafia 3 will be set in a full open world, allowing the player to explore all of New Bordeaux. There's a lot of variety in the gameplay. You can run and gun your way through missions, or you can take a more silent approach. The goal of the game is to build your own mafia so you can eventually take revenge. Mafia 3 releases on October 13th. Number 2, Battlefield 1. EA and DICE are back with another Battlefield game, but this one is very different from past games. Battlefield 1 will be set in World War I, featuring weaponry, vehicles, and design of what you would expect from that era. It's a very big shakeup to Battlefield, which in all honesty is kind of needed since the series has been getting a bit stale. Judging from the closed alpha, the game is shaping up very nicely. The weapons feel great, the map was very well designed, and overall it just seemed like a very polished experience for an alpha. It releases on October 21st, but you can get 3 days early access if you pick up the deluxe edition.
We have lost objective Edward.
And finally, number 1, Final Fantasy 15. Final Fantasy fans have been waiting a decade for Final Fantasy 15. Originally titled Final Fantasy Versus 13 and expected to be a PlayStation 3 exclusive, this game has seen a very long road. That road finally comes to an end this fall with the release of the game, and it's looking to be one of the most ambitious Japanese RPGs we've ever seen. The sheer scope of the game is mind-boggling. From a technical perspective, visually, it's jaw-dropping. The gameplay is a bit more action-oriented, more similar to Kingdom Hearts rather than the past Final Fantasy games, but it worked well in the demo. The one thing you have to hope for is for the story and writing to deliver, because that has been the issue with FF games recently, especially with the FF13 series. We'll find out soon enough. Final Fantasy 15 releases on September 30th.
Only you can restore the light. Only you can reclaim.
So that wraps up the top 10 upcoming PlayStation 4 games of fall 2016. What do you think? Which of these games are you the most excited for? Comment your thoughts down below. Thank you for watching, and goodbye.